On June 12th, a video was posted on China's TikTok platform Douyin, asking viewers to help identify a man seen in the footage and notify his family in New York. The man had been taken by immigration officials before his flight from New York to Texas took off. A few days earlier, another Chinese national in the U.S. posted a video on Douyin warning local Chinese illegal immigrants to be cautious about potential deportation.
5月30号凌晨，洛杉矶工业市一个仓库。
In the early hours of May 30th, a warehouse in Los Angeles was raided by the police, and around 60 to 70 Chinese individuals were taken away. These individuals had various statuses, including US citizens, green card holders, asylum applicants, and those whose asylum applications have already been approved, as well as individuals with expired tourist or business visas who were staying beyond their allowed time. The US Immigration and Customs Enforcement is now handling these individuals differently based on their status. If you are a US citizen facing criminal charges, you can apply for bail. If you are a green card holder, once convicted, you may be handed over to ICE and face deportation. If you are an approved asylum seeker, don't think you're safe. If criminal charges are substantiated, your asylum status could be revoked and you could be deported. If you're staying in the US on an expired tourist or business visa, even if you're in the process of adjusting your status or waiting for your application through marriage, your status may be revoked and you could be deported.
Some comments reported that over 100 Chinese individuals were deported, filling an entire plane. On June 9, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, confirmed that, under the direction of the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, 122 Chinese illegal immigrants were deported back to China on June 3rd. The individuals deported ranged from 19 to 68 years old, and many had criminal backgrounds. According to ICE's press release, the deportees included individuals convicted of serious crimes such as murder, child molestation, human trafficking, rape, and drug trafficking. Among those deported were a 47-year-old Chinese man convicted of murder, a 49-year-old convicted of drug trafficking, a 27-year-old convicted of rape, a 50-year-old convicted of bribery, and a 55-year-old convicted of human trafficking. Director Josh Johnson of ICE's Enforcement and Removal Operations Dallas commented, "Through our interagency partnerships and coordination across ICE field offices, we have successfully removed these individuals, many who were convicted of egregious crimes." Johnson added, "This operation not only enhances the public safety of communities across the U.S., but also strengthens national security. Our colleagues at ICE come to work every day to identify, arrest, and remove illegal aliens who attempt to circumvent our nation's immigration laws." ICE emphasized that these individuals had violated U.S. immigration laws. All aliens in violation of U.S. immigration law may be subject to arrest, detention, and, if found removable by final order, removed from the United States regardless of nationality. The U.S. government has intensified efforts to combat crimes by Chinese nationals, particularly illegal immigrants. On June 9, the U.S. Department of Justice confirmed that a Chinese man admitted to illegally exporting firearms and ammunition from California to North Korea. He faces up to decades in prison. The U.S. Department of Justice stated that Shenghua Wen, a 42-year-old illegal immigrant from China, overstayed his student visa after studying in the U.S. He was arrested in California in December 2024. Investigation found that North Korea paid Wen $2 million to smuggle weapons to the country. He is charged with violating U.S. sanctions by collaborating with unidentified accomplices to conceal firearms and ammunition in a container shipped from Long Beach, California to North Korea via Hong Kong. In August 2024, authorities seized 2 devices from Wen's residence intended for North Korea, a chemical threat detector and a handheld broadband receiver for detecting wiretapping devices. In September 2024, they also confiscated 50,000 rounds of 9mm ammunition intended for transport to North Korea. Wen also tried to obtain a civilian airport engine through U.S. intermediaries. He faces up to 20 years in prison for violating the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and up to 10 years for acting as an unregistered foreign agent. His sentencing is set for August 18, 2025. Analysts noted that since Donald Trump's return to the White House, U.S.-China tensions have escalated. Chinese espionage activities in the U.S. have increased, prompting stronger U.S. responses and exposing numerous significant cases. On June 8, Han Chen-Xuan, a doctoral student from Wuhan, China, was arrested at Detroit Airport for allegedly smuggling biological materials into the U.S. and making false statements to authorities. The U.S. Department of Justice filed charges. This marks another case in recent weeks involving Chinese researchers illegally transporting materials in Michigan, drawing significant U.S. attention. On June 9, the U.S. Department of Justice announced that Han faces criminal charges for smuggling biological materials into the U.S. and making false statements to authorities. The indictment states that Han, a PhD student at Hangzhou University, sent 4 packages from China in 2024 and 2025, concealing biological materials intended for a University of Michigan laboratory. On June 8, Han arrived at Detroit Airport on a J-1 visa. During customs inspection, he falsely claimed that packages contained plastic cups and denied sending scientific materials. Customs officers found that Han had deleted data from his electronic devices 3 days before arriving, raising suspicions of evasion and prompting further security concerns. During subsequent FBI questioning, Han admitted to making false statements to the U.S. Customs and confirmed that the packages contained nematode-related biological materials. Michigan U.S. Attorney Gorgon stated that smuggling biological materials from China to the U.S. represents a concerning pattern that threatens national security. Virologist Dr. Lin Shuaoshu noted, while at Hangzhou University of Science and Technology, Han Chen-Xuan co-authored a research paper on nematode aging mechanisms with Professor Shang Xu of the University of Michigan as a lead author. Han likely intended to join Xu's lab for further research. In 2024, Han mailed similar biological materials to Michigan, repeatedly violating biosafety regulations. These nematodes are often used for toxicity testing and toxin development, raising questions about potential deeper issues. U.S. law enforcement has clearly recognized this threat. In March 2025, Han's 2 U.S. visa applications were denied because he could not adequately explain his background or research. Han Chen-Xuan's case is not isolated. Just a week earlier, the U.S. Department of Justice arrested 2 Chinese researchers at the University of Michigan. 33-year-old Jian Yunqing and her 34-year-old partner Lu Zunyong. Jian smuggled a potential agricultural terrorism weapon, the wheat stem rust fungus, into the U.S. hidden in her shoe. This pathogen is highly destructive, causing head blight in crops with global annual losses of billions of dollars. It also harms human and livestock health, leading to vomiting, liver damage, and reproductive defects. Dr. Lin Xiaoshu noted, wheat stem rust can persist in plant material for years, regenerating and spreading asexually the following winter. Research on this pathogen requires special permits, which the University of Michigan, where these researchers worked, did not have. Jian Yunqing is a researcher at the University of Michigan, while Lu Zunyong works at Zhejiang University, which has a military-civilian cooperation agreement. This raises questions about whether they acted under military direction to bring dangerous fungi to the U.S., threatening its food supply. Infected plants can also harm humans, making this incident appear like a potential terrorist act. Experts note that this incident resembles other Chinese actions, such as exporting fentanyl to the U.S. and contributing to the spread of COVID-19. Professor Ye Yaoyuan from the University of St. Thomas stated, if such actions occur before U.S.-China tariff negotiations or a Trump-Xi Jinping meeting, they could erode the limited mutual trust between the 2 nations, complicating efforts to maintain bilateral relations. Chinese-Canadian writer Sheng Shui said, this appears to be a covert Chinese effort against the U.S., growing increasingly active. It aims to undermine U.S. national security from within, targeting critical areas like biological materials and agricultural pathogens that threaten the safety of its people and economic foundation. These are not merely espionage cases. Beyond stealing military, economic, or technological secrets, These actions suggest an asymmetric campaign on U.S. soil targeting national security. Some online commentators suggest that despite China's internal challenges, including economic difficulties and diplomatic isolation, the Chinese government remains relentless in targeting its adversaries, reflecting its unchanging nature. Several analysts suggest that the recent LA riots over illegal immigration, while lacking direct evidence, are widely believed to be orchestrated by the Chinese government. U.S. media investigations identified two organizations that may have contributed to the riots. The Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, which received tens of millions in California government grants, condemned ISIS arrests of illegal immigrants and organized protests but denied involvement in violence. The Party for Socialism and Liberation, which printed protest signs, previously joined anti-Israel demonstrations. This Marxist group received funding from U.S. tech billionaire Neville Roy Singham and his wife, who have close ties to the Chinese Communist Party, and provide substantial support to global CCP propaganda efforts. Investigations show Singham resides in Shanghai, served as a Huawei consultant from 2001 to 2008, and co-founded a consulting firm with the CCP's propaganda system. In 2023, he faced scrutiny in India for allegedly using his media outlet, NewsClick, to receive CCP funds and spread propaganda. At the riot scene, some individuals carried flags with hammer and sickle symbols. The notorious Antifa group also appeared in Los Angeles. CNN reporters noted that the current protesters differ from the initial group. Analysts highlight that the CCP's covert infiltration of U.S. cultural and academic institutions is particularly severe, with consequences only recently recognized. The LA riots this year and last year's pro-Palestinian protests at U.S. universities are closely linked. In spring 2024, large-scale pro-Palestinian protests erupted at universities like Columbia and the City University of New York. Protesters chanted slogans, occupied buildings, set up roadblocks, and threatened students. New York police clearing Columbia's Hamilton Hall found protesters equipped with industrial-grade chains, gas masks, earplugs, goggles, hammers, knives, and ropes, indicating highly organized actions. Shockingly, police found a high proportion of non-students among those arrested, about 25% at Columbia University and 60% at CUNY. This raised questions about whether the protests were student-led or manipulated by external factors. Further investigations link these protests to the Singham network, funded by the U.S. tech billionaire as mentioned previously. The Network Contagion Research Institute reports that since 2017, the Singham network has funneled undisclosed funds into the U.S., advancing CCP-supported agendas and playing a significant role in pro-Palestinian protests. It funded multiple radical groups, including at least 3 SID4P alliance members, demonstrating direct influence on U.S. campus protests. Analysts suggest there is reason to suspect that Neville Roy Singham, a former Huawei consultant, is directly guided by the Chinese Communist Party's United Front Work Department. Since its establishment in 1939, the Chinese Communist Party's United Front Work Department has promoted CCP influence globally. Its goals include building pro-CCP networks abroad, monitoring overseas Chinese communities, spreading propaganda, and using struggle tactics to counter opposing forces. Its operations are often conducted through seemingly harmless organizations, making them covert and hard to detect. The United Front Work Department's overseas strategy includes 4 key tactics. 1. Funding social unrest. The United Front Work Department supports radical groups to create social turmoil. In 2020, the U.S. faced BLM protests, some of which escalated into violent riots, causing $1 to $2 billion in property damage, one of the most destructive domestic unrest events in U.S. history. Investigations reveal that donations to the BLM-related Black Future Lab were processed through the Chinese Progressive Association, a group with long-standing pro-CCP ties that has hosted events raising the People's Republic of China flag and closely engaged with CCP officials. In 2023, during Xi Jinping's attendance at the San Francisco APEC Summit, pro-CCP groups, mobilized by the Chinese consulate, attacked anti-CCP protesters with pepper spray and blunt objects, and stole personal property. WeChat records show the Chinese consulate in Los Angeles provided travel and meal subsidies for these groups, indicating direct control by the United Front Work Department. 2. Co-opting elites. The United Front Work Department uses financial incentives to recruit foreign elites as CCP proxies. In 2024, Robert Atkinson, president of the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation, testified before Congress that the United Front Work Department has infiltrated nearly every elite sector of U.S. business, politics, and academia. A Newsweek investigation found that from 1990 to 2023, New York politicians received over $1 million in donations linked to the United Front Work Department. Representative Grace Meng received $270,000 from pro-CCP sources since 2006, including from An Kwan-zong, convicted for involvement in the CCP's Fox Hunt operation. Meng even declared an An Kwan-zong Day in her district to honor his contributions. The academic sector has also been infiltrated. In 2020, Harvard professor Charles Lieber was arrested for participating in the CCP's Thousand Talents program. From 2012 to 2015, he secretly served as a strategic scientist at China's Wuhan University of Technology, earning $50,000 monthly while concealing his CCP ties. Lieber was convicted of false statements and tax evasion, but remains active in China's academic community as a visiting professor at Tsinghua University. 3. Espionage. The United Front Work Department engages in espionage through covert networks, stealing commercial and academic secrets. In 2021, Yo Xiaorong was sentenced to 14 years for stealing polymer formulas from Coca-Cola and Eastman Chemical. In 2022, General Electric engineer Zheng Xiaoqing received a 2-year sentence for stealing turbine design blueprints. These cases demonstrate the United Front Work Department's systemic use of programs like the Thousand Talents program to steal U.S. technology. The United Front Work Department also controls the Chinese Students and Scholars Association to monitor Chinese students abroad and suppress free expression. A former CSSA member was accused of reporting peers' activities to Chinese state security at UC Berkeley. In 2015, Chinese student Fang Fang, suspected of intelligence gathering and political infiltration, fled the U.S. after building ties with U.S. political figures. Funding social unrest, co-opting elites, espionage, and media manipulation, these strategies aim to undermine target countries' social cohesion, interfere in politics, and advance CCP agendas. 4. The United Front Work Department operates media networks like China News Service to spread propaganda to overseas Chinese communities. The US-based China Daily and Australia's Pacific Media Group are linked to these efforts. Recently, the department has placed individuals in Western mainstream media to influence news coverage. The New York Times reporter Nicole Hong's article, which echoed CCP narratives against Falun Gong, are an example sparking controversy. Nicole Hong's father, George Hong, served as an honorary director of the Chinese Association of Scholars in the U.S. and was involved in pro-CCP activities. In 1995, he met Zhang Wei Chao, then deputy director of China State Council Overseas Chinese Affairs Office, to discuss promoting CCP propaganda through Chinese language programs in the U.S. He was received twice by the former CCP leader Jiang Zemin at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing, indicating close ties to CCP leadership. Hong's reporting on Falun Gong used selective quotes and negative perspectives, omitting interviews with active Falun Gong practitioners or Asian religious experts, violating journalistic principles. More concerning, her articles relied on an academic institution that failed to disclose CCP funding to the U.S. authorities. This institution is under U.S. Department of Justice investigation for possible violations of foreign agent registration laws. Hong also collaborated closely with an individual listed by the FBI as a potential campus shooter, raising questions about her reporting motives. This person publicly expressed a desire to, quote, destroy Falun Gong on social media and claimed to have, quote, antisocial tendencies. They were arrested for illegal weapon possession and faced 2 charges. Neither the New York Times nor Hong has addressed these allegations, prompting public concern. As CCP influence becomes more evident, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has warned that the Chinese Communist Party is infiltrating U.S. businesses, universities, and local governments, urging immediate response. The U.S. government recognizes that the Chinese Communist Party has long waged a covert war against the U.S., now launching direct attacks on American soil. The recent deportation of 122 Chinese illegal immigrants with criminal records, notable for its timing, signals the Trump administration's intolerance and suggests escalating measures against the CCP.